Alright, I'm super excited to share this modern bathroom DIY for under $300 in materials. Let's start with the before. We've got our construction grade mirror, original lighting, our beige sponge paint on the walls, shelving put up. This was a heavily used bathroom by a large family that had 10 children over the years. We've got our shelf with random tchotchkes. And right now this just wasn't functioning for the family. Kids are grown and out of the house, so it's time to make this thing gorgeous. So I'm going to explain this as if you're working on your own house over the weekend. So say you're starting on a Friday, you want to get a lot of this prep work out of the way. Friday evening, you're going to be tired after work. So getting your wood stained is a good place to start because it's fun, it's a little bit lighter. Now remember, stains do not look the way that they look on the can, and they don't even look always the same as they look on the sample board at the store. So you're going to want to try out some different stains on the backs of your board to see which one you really want. Measuring your board on the wall is really important because walls are often incorrect in size, so it can make a huge difference in your measurements. Also about your staining, this right here is a gel stain, so you can see it's a different process than rubbing on my stain, and it also has a different dry time. So make sure you check your stain process on your can before you buy it to make sure it works in your time frame. A lot of the cans look the same, but they do not have the same process and do not give you the same effect. If you didn't buy the pre-primed batten boards, you want to go ahead and prime your batten boards today on prep day, but do not cut them yet. All right, day 2. Some of this demo you might be able to do on day 1 if you're not tired from work. So we're going to remove all of our old stuff, our mirror, our shelves. We're going to sand these holes. We're going to sand some of the thick lines of paint between our thick paint and our unpainted area. And this is just with a medium sanding sponge. Okay, now, so for spackling, I like to use a spackling that comes pink, and when it's ready to paint over top of, it turns white. I like to use my finger to kind of put it in these holes a little bit, and then I'll use my spackling tool to kind of scrape it. But if you don't have a spackling tool, don't really worry about it. It will just get it as smooth as possible with your fingers, honestly, and then do the work with the sand later. I've definitely had to do that before. Not the best way, but it works just fine. We're going to take some of this off here, make it nice and smooth. Less to sand later, but again, not the end of the world. You just want to make sure that you have a decent amount inside the holes and that it's even with the surface. What you don't want is a big giant mountain. We also want to take off our fan cover for painting and cleaning. I'm going to need 2 hands for this, so I'm going to have to put down the phone. But you just pinch the little clips inside, and then you could just rinse it right out in the sink. I didn't need to use soap or anything like that. Please do not leave your fan cover on while you're painting. It's gonna look terrible. Just please don't do it. You know who I'm talking to. Same people who leave on your outlet covers and paint over top of them or around them. It's always gonna look terrible. Please stop. Alright, so while I'm waiting for my spackle to dry, I'm actually just going to put up a line of painter's tape. This is actually the only painter's tape you'll see me use this whole time. And it's just to give myself a general guideline for when I'm painting, to divide my white spaces with my black. Because I have no spackle on the walls where I'm putting my white, I'm going to go ahead and save time and start to paint that white area while my spackle's drying, since it's also underneath it. So when I go to sand it, it's not going to go down into my paint since the white is up high. Always make sure you get a good quality paint. I try to get the best quality that they have in stock. Right now there is a paint shortage like there is of everything else, so they might not have the best available, but I try to get whatever they do have available. So in this case, I think it's the second best available in Valspar, and this is satin since we're in the bathroom. Want something easy to clean but not too shiny. You see that I'm using a small roller here. You can use a small roller or a big roller. I hadn't restocked on my large rolling pads, so since I had some extra small ones, I just used the small one for here and then saved the big one for my black areas. In this case, I'm working smarter, not harder. You see me, I'm not taping off anything, and that's because I'm going to paint over these with black, right? So that black is going to go right over this white once it's dry. I'm going to have a nice clean line in between the white and the black instead of having that beigey brown peek through. Also, please, please, please remember to stir your paint often. If you don't, you'll end up with different glosses. So it'll start to separate, and then one part will be a little bit glossier than the other. It happens to me sometimes. That's just what it is when you do a DIY. But to try not to have that happen, stir as often as possible. And especially with your second coat, which I'm not doing here. This is my first coat, so I'm just kind of throwing it on there. But with your second coat especially, I recommend using a paint pan so that your paint is more even. Because I was using a small roller and it was just my first coat, I just went ahead and dipped it into the paint can after I stirred it instead of using a paint pan, just wasting one. So I was being a little lazy, but again, it's the first coat, so it doesn't matter as much. You just want to get a good base down. So after I finish that first coat, I'm going to go ahead and sand these spackle spots. I'm gently sanding, trying to get an even coat, an even finish with the paint that's currently on my wall. See how this is pretty easy since I did use my spackling knife to scrape most of it off. You won't have those big old mountains left over like you see through in some people's walls. Once you finish your second coat of white, you can go ahead and get started on that black coating. The reason I say this is because by the time you paint your two sections of black that are underneath your white, they're not touching your white at all because of that tape. So it doesn't matter if the white is dry. But by the time you finish those two and work your way around, the white should be dry enough to where you can go ahead and finish it up and do the edges and everything. And if not, this is your first coat of black, so you can like wait a little bit longer to do the edges with your edger tool or with your brush. But go ahead and slap this main part on there. I am using a pretty high quality roller pad for this. It is longer the cotton is longer, so it holds a lot of paint. This will really come in handy when I go to do the ceiling because it's a lot of work holding your arm up there, and you don't want to constantly be getting down and up off the ladder to put more paint on your pad. You can see I'm putting this paint on pretty thick. That way, I really do only have to do 2 coats, but you do want to make sure that you're checking often that you don't have big lines or big drips, because once it dries, that thing is on there really thick. So I'm going here with my brush in these crevices. I use my brush and a small roller for back behind the toilet and back behind the sink, and my large roller for large areas. Again, it's really important to get this first coat on there so that it can dry. Your second coat, you're going to be a little bit more meticulous. I always recommend to do your corners and your edges first when you're doing your last coat, because it's 2 different textures. So when I use my edger tool and when I use my brush, you'll get streaks. With my roller, it's the kind of sponge look. So I like to do my edges first and then roll my roller as close to that edge and overlapping as possible so I can get rid of that texture. It's not always possible to get rid of the texture, but I do what I can. Using this mini roller for behind the toilet. It works great for behind radiators too. Don't mind those. So this is that first coat. So you can see that it's a little thin around my light. You can see the slightly different texture in the side to the middle of that, from that edger I was talking about. Now, if you're replacing your light, which I am doing, this is a good time to go ahead and take down that light. I really wanted to keep that bright light in here while I was painting, but I'm actually going to take it down for my second coat and go ahead and pull in some really bright lamps. If you don't want to redo your light, think about painting it possibly. You could take out the light bulbs, take off the glass and spray paint it, and then you could replace your glass for like $30 with new, more modern glass. All right, so what to do about these little fleck marks that everybody has, all the little mess up spots? My secret is that I use a small little artist brush, and I just go in there. A packet of these is like $5 for like 10 brushes. It's day 3. This is the exciting but a little bit scary part. This was my first time actually doing board and batten and using a nail gun all by myself without somebody assisting me with holding things, etc. I also want to take a second to tell you, look at that stain. When you're going to stain your wood, you want to make sure that you pick the side with the best grain pattern. Sometimes you don't know which board is going to look the best stained, so don't cut your board before you stain it, because another one might be your favorite, then you cut it in a place where the stain was really cool. Alright, so here I'm putting on my construction adhesive. This one is a Gorilla Glue construction adhesive, but I also use liquid nails when I do my batten, so it's just what I had on hand. They're both awesome products. I have some affiliated links in my blog to the products I used, or something as close as possible to the products that I used. Alright, so I am getting my board on here and I'm sliding it up to get it level. You're going to see some of that glue on the bottom pop out there, which I'll wipe off later and clean it up. I have my level to make sure that it's level. Keep readjusting that. This is the most important board out of all of them. You see it right when you come in. So I was really nervous about messing this one up. Now once you get it on there a little bit, the glue kind of holds right away. It's kind of toothy, feels like almost. So I actually put one nail on the top of one side, then on the top of the other. That way I still could move the board if I needed to after that first nail. I only put 2 nails in the end of each board, because remember, those nails are not keeping the board on the wall. They're just keeping the board level until that glue dries. That construction adhesive is what's keeping that board on the wall. Alright, so now that my board's on the wall, I can go ahead and measure and cut my batten. So, again, the reason that I waited is because floors and molding and walls are sometimes off. So I put tape where each of my batten was going to be, and then I measured accordingly with a little pencil, just like I did my boards, for each space in case the floor or the wall or whatever was off, and then cut to size. So now I'm following the same steps. I put some liquid nails on the back. I'm putting actually my middle batten up first because it's such a small wall, and that's the first thing you see when you come in. Again, this is my first time doing it. I'm trying to do as minimal nails as possible. I did one on the top and one on the bottom. There was a few that I had to do more because either the wall was warped or the board was a little bit warped. So to get it to lay a little bit flatter, I put an extra nail in. I measured and separated mine from what made sense. I ended up with only 7 instead of 8. And what I did was, here I realized, oops, this is silly. Let's go ahead and make a guide. So I made a guide out of one of the end pieces of wood I had left over so that all of my battens were perfectly spread out. Once all my battens are up, I'm going to go ahead and caulk these seams. Now, I do recommend getting dark caulk for the dark wall. And I do recommend painting your battens one coat at least before you put them on. The reason I did not was so that you could see them during the video. But it would have been a little bit easier for me if I would have painted them before and then just done like one quick coat after they were up, and then also painted over a dark or black caulk. Oh, and also for your stained wood, I recommend a tinted wood putty that is the same shade or like a half shade darker than your stained wood. You can see it right there in the upper corner. I didn't sand it off yet there, so I just stuck it in there, sanded it off, and then you can barely see those nail lines. So here we go. After my coats of paint on my batten, my finished product, I decided to upgrade the lighting, which I did all by myself. Don't be scared to do your lighting. It's really self-explanatory. The main thing is that you turn off your light switch. Also, my biggest problem, honestly, with this entire project was my studs. So in this bathroom, I only had one stud each on these short walls. And on this wall, it was on the left side, right where you see where my shelves are hanging. And so the right side of my shelves are in heavy-duty anchors. The stud behind my mirror is actually off-center, so I had to modify my mirror and use a scrap piece of wood in order to hang this centered. But it worked out great. Last but not least, I custom made a piece of wall art for my sister's bathroom. I just thought that it was the only thing that would be perfect here. It smells like cedar. It has all these different tones. It kind of pulls the front and the back of the bathroom together, a little bit of gray, a little bit of black, different wood stains. I did not include any of the decor in my pricing because a lot of the stuff I found around the house, other people might be reusing things that are already in their bathroom, so it just didn't make sense for different people's needs. A little bit about what I have here. I have some jars with some necessities for people that are visiting. I have my all-natural Trendy Smells candles that are made out of coconut wax. I have a beautiful glass hand sanitizer pump, extra hand towels. Those two baskets there are actually the same. One's popped up and one's down so that it gives two different looks, but they still go together. But you could, throw extra toilet paper in that top basket and nobody would know it's there. So if you enjoyed my video, please like and subscribe so you get my updated videos to come. If you have any questions for me, feel free to comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.